Hey, 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 how's it going? Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's January. Just check my audio here real quick and make sure that that everything works. There's a little bit of delay here, but hope everything is going well. This is the second time here that we're doing this. There's the delay. Cool. All right, cool. I just want to make sure that my audio worked real quick. But this is the second time we're doing this. We did it last month. And if you're just joining, really the purpose of this is to just kind of hang out for about an hour. If you have questions or really anything like that that you want to do, talk about with your career, mentorship, career coaching, those kind of things that I'm already doing elsewhere. And I've been doing it for a long time. And primarily I do it on Cyber Training Pro these days. But yeah, just an opportunity to kind of hang out and hang out with you. So while I'm on here too, let me go ahead and I'm going to put the link to the stream. So if you want to hang out, I'm going to put the link in the chat. You can go to that link and you can join the show. So you can turn on your video, audio, whatever you want to do. If you join the show and you actually have questions and things like that, you will get preferential treatment. So your comments and questions and things like that will be prioritized. So there's a little bit of incentive there. Also, if you don't get to watch the full stream, full show, the full hour, then a couple different ways that you can watch it. I will put it up. It'll go to members only on YouTube. That's where we're streaming right now. So you'll be able to see it if you're a Cyber Squad member, or if you are a member on cybertrainingpro.com and you have an eligible plan or eligible subscription, then you'll be able to access the recording on there as well. So let me go ahead and put the link in the chat here. All right, so hopefully that goes there. Perfect. All right, so pin the link if you want to join the show. If you don't, if you just want to text in your questions, that's completely fine as well. You can totally do that. But again, just remember that if you do join the show, then you can get prioritized responses and things like that. So, but again, the idea here is just to kind of hang out for an hour and really just talk cybersecurity, talk career, those kind of things. Or if you have no questions, then I guess I'll just hang out on here for an hour and go about the rest of my day. So, but I'm curious, where is everybody from that's tuning in? I see we're having a lot of people that are starting to hop on here, which is awesome. Love seeing that. Love seeing everybody get on the stream, looking for answers, looking for content, things to really help you in your career. You know, that's amazing. One of the things that I always tell people, especially if you're just getting into the career field right now, something that you may not realize is that, and let's see here, thing just flashed on here, so I'm not sure. Oh, I guess that's just me talking. Okay, but you may not realize this if you're just getting in the career field now. When I started, which is over a decade now ago, there was not a lot of content out there specifically for cybersecurity. There was a lot of, not even really a lot, but there was like tutorials and like a little bit of guidance and things like that, especially for like IT, but nothing that was cybersecurity centric. So it was very much that IT mindset. And you see that in advice still today, but you see all these different cybersecurity content creators out there, obviously some good, some bad, but you see a lot of different content these days, hacking content, GRC content, certification stuff, tutorials, all kinds of different stuff, which is just amazing. It's so good to have so much information out there, so many courses, things like that that can help you in your journey. This career field is challenging, especially if you're just starting out, because there's a lot of ways that you can go, a lot of options that you can choose from. And if you don't if you don't have a lot of the foresight and kind of context of somebody that's more seasoned, you could really make some decisions that are maybe are interesting, but are not maybe the correct decision for where you want to go. So it's very easy to do that. And that's why you need a mentor or a career coach or somebody to help guide you that has been through it, that understands what's going on in the career field, kind of where things are going. And I always tell people, there's a lot of information out there, but getting information, especially from seasoned professionals, can help you a lot more, especially when you're trying to avoid mistakes in your career or do things that the only real way that you're going to find out that maybe that's a bad idea or maybe that's a good idea is by actually doing it. So you kind of learn through those other people. So let's see here. P says, hi from Cameroon. Hey, how's it going? And let's see what else we got here. Switch career from Egypt, no tech background. I'll go for Net Plus, Security Plus, CYSA Plus, and build projects. Am I on the right path? If not, what should I go for? Yeah, so that's definitely a good path. And I see somebody that joined here, and I'll add you here in a second. But with the career path, the first thing I always tell people is go grab my free ebook. And the reason why I say that is because I've built in a roadmap in that free ebook that will tell you exactly what you should get, kind of the path you should take, what timing you can kind of expect, and the things that you should do. One of the first things you have to do, you have to get that foundation. So Net Plus, Security Plus, great start, right? You need to understand operating systems. You need to understand how networks work, kind of that basic terminology. CYSA Plus is a great additional step. It's not always necessarily the step that I recommend after that, after like the Network Plus, Security Plus, because there's some other skills that you kind of want to build in there. But especially if you want to go into Security Operations Center or something like that, that's a great way to go. And projects are the way to go, right? Build projects. No matter what you do, build projects. Build something tangible that you can show employers and that you can show people that you're doing, because that's how you're going to stand out. If you don't do that and you just rely on certifications or something else, it's going to be very hard to get through into that interview stage, because that helps you get over that barrier and helps you stand out from other people. So let me go ahead and add Brian here. I've had you waiting for a second here, so I'll go ahead and add you. Hey, Brian, how's it going?
Pretty good. How you doing?
Not too bad, not too bad. It's Wednesday, so. You have questions? You just hanging out? What's going on in your world?
Well, I'm actually attending WGU for cybersecurity and assurance.
Yeah.
I've been in industrial electrical maintenance for 20 years, so I'm kind of changing career fields.
Yeah.
I'm looking at trying to do some projects, I guess on GitHub for my portfolio.
Sure.
Maybe some recommendations on beginner projects for someone looking to get into the industry.
Yeah. So one of the things when it comes to projects is, just from a blanket statement, I would say there's no like bad project, right? Like anytime you learn something, if you want to do a project on it, go for it. One of the benefits of projects is just being able to show not only what you're learning. So if you're learning, for instance, how to set up a server environment with like Microsoft Server, just showing how to configure that or set up the security settings, showing that is great. So you're showing kind of that technical aspect, documenting it. So how you communicate, how you document that's another, it's not necessarily a technical skill, but it shows, how you communicate with people, whether that is through video, whether that's through writing, so a blog, however you're going about that, that's going to show some aspect of what you're trying to do. So that's kind of like blanket statement. Every project that you can do is a good project. And just approaching it that way too, you're going to come up with some different projects than other people might do, right? Okay. One of the, kind of the core projects that a lot of times we will see in cybersecurity, or people that are looking to get into cybersecurity, would be, for instance, setting up a network, setting up an enterprise network. What kind of security technologies would you put in there? Would you put in like an IDS, something like Snort, So I put a video out on my channel on how to configure snort and capture packets and things like that. So that would be a great security related type of project that you could do. Security configurations, group policies within the Microsoft operating system. How can you automate enabling or configuring a Windows system, a server? How can you automate those configurations? Another great project, right? Not super complicated because there's a manual way to do it, and then you just have to figure out how to do that at the command line or script that out and automate that. Very valuable skill set to show. Kind of a definitely. I would say I would put that kind of like more on the basic side if we were kind of like laying all these projects out, right? Because the more that we go from manual things to automated, the more kind of like advanced it's going to be seen.
Right.
So even if you just show a project of configuring a network, configuring an enterprise setup manually, that's a good project. Now we want to automate it. So think of it in that context. Every time you're doing a project, what can I do and show like the easy way? And then how can I take that and say, okay, now I've also figured out how to do this in a more advanced way. And that changes the project without even like getting crazy with it. But so I'd say that's a really good one. So again, configuring a network, trying to throw in some technologies in there, doing like packet capture type of projects. So for instance, a really popular one that we see in cybersecurity as well is setting up a web server with some kind of authentication. And especially if you can show that you're using an insecure authentication, and how can I capture that information? So for instance, a tool that I would look into is something like Burp Suite.
Right.
It's basically going to allow you to capture clear text information or authentication information. There's a ton of like tutorials and stuff out there that I would definitely just recommend going to Google and searching for this stuff, trying to find some kind of tutorial, because a lot of times from a professional standpoint, if you go out and you find, let's say, like a tutorial on how to do this stuff, and then you replicate it or you do it, that's okay. I might not even reference that original tutorial. I might just say, hey, I did this project and I figured out how to do this. But a lot of people will start with tutorials and they'll kind of dive deeper. That's one of the things that, especially like a lot of these courses and things that are out there. Courses are great, right? They teach us how to do a whole bunch of stuff. They teach us how to, they just teach us different stuff that we probably don't know. One of the things that separates a quote unquote like good student from an excellent student is somebody that takes that information and they start messing around with it. They start experimenting. They start thinking outside the box beyond what's presented to them, and how they can adjust that and kind of make it different, how they can kind of make it their own, if they will. Because a lot of learning happens kind of when you're first presented with information, you're first presented with a subject, you learn that, right? Like, okay, I learned this in a perfect scenario. But then that gap, when you start experimenting and kind of breaking things, and everything that you learn in between that period, that's where a ton of the learning that is actually really valuable starts to happen, because you're going to start building your research skills. You're going to start building your analytical skills, all these skills that are going to help you think outside the box, because that's the reality of what happens. A lot of times this technology, you configure it and it may work out of the box. It may, but a lot of times, all these environments are so unique, or there are different things that exist, that maybe that default setting doesn't work. Maybe you just have to figure out why that doesn't work. Maybe you have to figure out how to do things differently. So it's one of these things where, the more that you experiment with things, the more you try it, the better off you're going to be. You're just going to learn more and more lessons. Let's see, what other projects? Do you have like a certain area that you're interested in? Like, I know you said you're doing WGU.
Yeah. Well, I'm in the CompTIA A+ right now.
Okay.
I probably lean more towards defense, blue team, I guess.
Okay.
But probably, to be honest, when I get further into it, I'll probably have a better idea which direction um,
Cool.
that I'd be
Yeah.
going.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's one of the things too with you know, getting into this career field. There's so many different paths that you can take, and so many different angles that you can kind of explore, areas that there are. So it's really try to get as much exposure as you can, especially early on, because that's going to help kind of shape the way that you go. You're gonna learn something. You're gonna be like, oh, that's really interesting. I want to dive deeper into that area, and just run with it. One of the challenges, especially early on, that people face is once they start learning about a whole bunch of these different areas, they try to do it all. It's super difficult to do it all. It's not going to happen, right? Like there's just so much stuff out there that you could do. So you really want to lean into your interest. Um, but okay, so defensive side, another one that you could do, and I'll put this in the chat. There's a tool called Waza, and there's Splunk, and there's a whole bunch of these tools, but they're SIM tools, and SIEM, and basically they are monitoring tools. They're very common in the defensive side of things, and they will help you monitor traffic on systems, changes on systems, event logs, all those kinds of things. Setting up a tool like that, extremely beneficial. Figuring out how to configure it, how to set up dashboards, um, you know, thinking about key security events or key things that you might want to monitor. That starts to kind of get a little bit more into that advanced realm, because those tools are they can be complicated.
Yeah.
um, but figuring out how to manage those is an extremely beneficial skill set, especially if you're working on the defensive side. There are a lot of times, especially in big companies, people that literally that is their job, to manage those tools.
Right.
um, Vulnerability scanning, if you want to do things like Nessus, and I have a video on the channel. It's a little bit older, but on how to do vulnerability scanning with Nessus. You know, that's a phenomenal skill set. That's a pretty common one as well. Just as far as like identifying vulnerabilities, scanning systems. Um, you know, so I would say start with some of those, because those will be those are popular options for sure. Like you can go deep on this stuff. You could,
Right.
you know, find malware and like try to reverse engineer it and do all these complicated things. But I would probably start with those, and then kind of branch off from there. But again, as you're learning stuff, if you think of something else, or you get exposed to some other kind of technology or whatever, just do a project on it. At this point, it's just about doing as much as you can to build that portfolio so that you have something to show. One of the
Right.
things that you don't want to do, you know, is kind of get to the end when it's kind of crunch time, and you're like, okay, I need to apply to these jobs. I need a job, but I have no portfolio. It's a lot harder to go back and start building this stuff than it is to do it as you're going.
Right.
So definitely do that. Let's see, I'm just looking through the comments here, and let's see here. Start pulling these up. What are your thoughts on entry cybersecurity jobs saying you need 2 to 3 years of experience, and what I can do to make up for experience? So we kind of were just talking about this. Projects are going to help make up some of that ground. Unfortunately, you know, projects and lab experience and things like that are not the exact same as real world experience. It's just how it is. But the more that you can do projects, documenting these projects, and that's another key thing too. Kind of what we're talking about with the projects is you don't want to just do a project, you want to document it. Document it so you can show an employer on a blog, on a vlog, whatever, some way, GitHub, documenting that so you build that portfolio. Typically with jobs, the advice that I give as far as what kind of jobs to apply to. When you're starting out, I would say apply to any, and I'll caveat this with this is situationally dependent because sometimes there are certain financial needs or things like that that kind of differ depending on what stage of your life you're at, if you have savings, like all those kind of things. But kind of a standard scenario, if you're just starting out working, the ideal thing would be to apply to any entry-level IT, help desk, or cybersecurity job. So that's kind of the blanket answer. You get one of those jobs, you figure out how to pivot. This career field is very much about how can I pivot from one situation or one job to another and still work towards my end goals. Because a lot of times with applying to these jobs, you're going to have to find an opportunity that matches what you bring to the table. And that can be challenging for sure. And it's not always evident in the job posting, but apply to any of those, apply to anything that says typically 3 years of experience or less. Probably 2 years of experience or less is kind of the sweet spot, because a lot of these companies, a lot of these jobs on the entry level side of things, 0 to 2 years is kind of like the entry level salary grade or pay grade that you would fall into. That doesn't mean you couldn't get a job that says 0 to 3 years or 3 years of experience. But, if it's 3 years of experience or less in the job posting, just apply to it and keep moving on with your day. Let's see what else got here. Okay, I'm an IT operations analyst at an IT MSP. Before this, I was in analytics for several years. Okay, that's great. I want to move into the cybersecurity field, but I'm not sure what area to focus on. Strong SQL and Bash. Yeah, so it depends on what your baseline of knowledge is. So typically, for a baseline of knowledge, somebody trying to get into this career field, you're going to have to understand kind of how networks work, how the operating systems work. I tell people to get an understanding of how cloud works too, kind of like a foundational level at least, because that's going to give you a really strong kind of foundation, a base for really any area that you want to go into. So it depends on what your baseline of that is. If you want to do things like automation because you're interested in Bash and SQL, there's a lot of analytic type of automation roles that are out there. You're going to have to search a little bit because it is a more specific type of skill set that you're trying to leverage. Look at things like, for instance, things managing SIM tools. That's a really good one that deals a lot with data. Database security type of roles. You could look towards like DevOps or DevSecOps. We don't know. I don't know specifically because you just mentioned like SQL and Bash. But I'm just guessing that's kind of the path that you want to go, is more like automation kind of stuff. So those would be really good areas to explore. Let's see here. So Brian, question for you as I'm kind of going through this. Have you started to apply to any jobs or anything yet? Or are you just kind of still working through stuff?
I've applied to a couple internships for next summer, and that's where I was looking at the qualifications and stuff and what they were asking for. And I really didn't have a lot of experience, as far as just projects or anything. So that's when I started looking into trying to do some projects.
Gotcha. Yeah, one of the things that I always tell people too, and this kind of goes for some of the questions and stuff, the comments that are in the chat, is that look for areas or opportunities that require a little bit of work as far as getting your name out there. And I bring this up because things like projects, right? We talked about projects; those require a little bit of work. going on LinkedIn and like creating a post or like networking with people, all those kind of things take a little bit of effort. One of the things that I've noticed is that the people that do those things that take a little bit more effort tend to stand out when they start to go apply for jobs, or apply for internships or whatever the case is. And, so kind of the more you start to do those other things, the more you start to stand out. Because a lot of times what I'll see, especially with like newer people, is that there's a heavy reliance on things like certifications, which is okay, right? Certifications are good. They have benefit. They're they're good to go for in general. But starting to do those kind of extra things is really what starts to help people stand out. Again, the entry level part is like the hardest area, because you have to essentially kind of get the employer or the hiring manager kind of past the idea of not having like actual real world experience. And so how do you do that? Networking, projects, those extra things. Definitely don't sleep on LinkedIn. I always try to recommend going on LinkedIn, maybe creating posts or using that as kind of like your blogging platform if you can. Networking with people. LinkedIn is so powerful as far as creating connections with other people, finding jobs, finding opportunities. That it's still, even though it's been out, I think LinkedIn's been out for like 20 years now, but even though it's been out for so long, people still don't leverage it as much as they could. It's not necessarily going to be like the magic bullet or the silver, magic pill or whatever, but it will help as far as showing that you have an interest in the career field. That's another thing that I've noticed that employers look for, just, in my tenure of being in the career field, and the things that I look for are you really interested in the career field? What are you doing in addition to kind of like the baseline stuff? And I had this video on the YouTube channel about, I forget what I called it, but it's basically about the tiers of candidates and how you become an S tier candidate. And that's definitely worth a watch if anybody wants to go back and look at that. But essentially, I kind of break down these different tiers of different things that you can do. So getting involved in networking, networking with people, learning, education, certifications, projects, personal branding, all of those kind of things, and basically how you can rise the ranks to become this like S tier candidate, which is like the best candidate. So if you do all those things, all those tiers, then you're going to be, on your way to being the best candidate or the most competitive candidate already by doing all those things. Just depends, but definitely worth checking out, because that video it'll be pretty insightful just as far as like the things that people don't always do. And education itself, again, education is great. I love education. I love getting certifications, degrees, all those kind of things. But, education is kind of one of the more streamlined, kind of baseline kind of things. We really want to go beyond that so we can become a very competitive person. And again, that's why we do projects. That's why we do the things to stand out, because some people aren't willing to do it. And the people that are willing to do it, they're going to kind of rise to the top of the pile when it comes to these application, huge application piles that sometimes these employers face. You'd be surprised. I hear that, some of the jobs that I've heard about, they get posted will get 100, couple hundred, 1,000 applications like routinely. And so that's how you stand out, right? You have to do these extra things. It's not easy because it does take effort, but if you're strategic in the things that you do, and that's one of the things I try to tell people all the time, is how can you be strategic? How can you select things to do that maybe not everybody is doing, but that look really, really good? It's hard, because you have to try to identify those things at times. But the better that you can do that, the more you can stand out. Definitely make sure that your resume looks good. That's another thing that I always, really emphasize. Technical resumes can be different than other industries, other career fields. I used to work in sales and marketing. Sales and marketing resume is very different than a technical resume, for sure. Technical resumes tend to be very to the point and straightforward, avoiding ambiguity or like unclear information. And I actually have a video on the channel too where I went through my resume. So highly recommend checking that out if you haven't seen that. But that will also kind of show you the structure that I have with my resume. It's still the structure I use today. I think that video I put out a couple years ago, I think. But the structure, it still works like a charm. And I kind of go through the reasons of why I do those certain things. So definitely check that out too. Let's see here. This is a good question, actually, too. So how likely are you to get an IT job with cybersecurity focused certification? So one of the things that I noticed kind of as I was coming up through my career is that once you get into cybersecurity, it can be a challenge to go back to IT. It's definitely easier to go IT to cybersecurity than kind of back, but that doesn't mean you can't do it. But if you think you want to work in IT, or that's kind of your focus, you should really hone in on the things that are important for IT. The two areas have different objectives, they have different focuses. For example, this example I give a lot, in cybersecurity, something like a CCNA might not be as valuable as it will be in the IT world. That doesn't mean it won't be valuable. It doesn't mean you can't get value from it or use it. But it's just, in general, it's going to be a lot more valuable on the IT side because you're probably going to be dealing with that networking gear, that Cisco equipment, that Cisco knowledge. On the cybersecurity side, you might not be doing that. You might be looking at packets, for example. So you need networking knowledge, but you don't necessarily need that Cisco specific knowledge. So it's kind of the differences of the two. And you just have to focus in on what you're trying to accomplish. How do we find that out? Well, we look at the job postings. We see what employers are asking for those specific types of jobs. I always tell people to use those job postings as kind of your guiding light, right? Like I can tell you a lot of certifications and things that exist and that may come into play, but if you know the kind of job that you want, you should be researching those jobs and understanding the skill sets that they are requesting, because that's going to also shape what you put into your resume and how you phrase that. When we're talking about resumes, for example, because that's a huge part of it, your resume should tell a story about what you're trying to accomplish in your career. So where you came from, where you currently are, and where you're trying to go. Those are the main questions that you're trying to answer with your resume. And that whole story has to line up. So that doesn't mean you can't have, for instance, cybersecurity certifications, but you need to phrase your whole resume in the sense that you want an IT job if that's your goal. If you're in IT and trying to go into cybersecurity, turn off that IT mindset, turn on the cybersecurity mindset, and think about how you're going to phrase that so that if a cybersecurity manager is reading that, they say, hey, this person isn't set on working in IT. They want to work in cybersecurity. And they phrase the resume in a sense that I understand what they're doing for cybersecurity responsibilities and duties. It's not a laundry list of IT responsibilities that don't maybe necessarily relate to what we're doing. It's very, job searching is about skills, but it's also about being strategic. It's also about thinking about the psychological aspects of these things and kind of the mindset that the people that are reading this are, interested in and what they are looking for specific jobs. Let's see here. It's another one. What do you think about the hands-on certs like Hack the Box, CDSA, or BTL1? Is it worth it? So one of the things with certifications, and I try to tell people this all the time when new certifications come out, is that a lot of times certifications, for them to make major impacts, and I'm going to approach it in a couple different ways. First, I'll approach it from the employability standpoint. So certifications take about 10 years to make any major inroads into the employment cycle, into what employers want, what they're asking for. So when you see brand new certifications, that's not to say that there aren't new ones that are valuable. For instance, like the BTL1, Blue Team Level 1. That's one that SOC teams and SOC managers, security managers, a lot of times they are aware of that because it's been out for, I think it's been out for about 4 years now. But even when it was coming out, there was a lot of buzz around it just because it was kind of different. It's kind of, very security operations center focused. There wasn't a lot of things in that kind of realm. There really still isn't, but there's more now. But it takes about 10 years for it to make any kind of major impact on the employability of things. On the learning side of things, there's a lot of certifications out there that will teach you things. And you have to decide, what certifications do you have now? Where are you trying to go? How does that certification fit into what you're trying to do? If it fits, and maybe it's not super high on the priority list of employers, do you go for it right away? Do you get something that they need to check their box, and then you get something like that to kind of next level your information, your training, your knowledge, your skill sets? Worth it and not worth it are subjective for sure. A lot of times you'll have to make those decisions on your own as far as, do you think that fits into what you're trying to accomplish? It's a hard one. The ones that are definitely pretty much always worth it are going to be the ones that always show up in the job postings, right? Like if you go to a job board, Indeed, LinkedIn, whatever, and you just search for, let's say, CISSP. CISSP is going to come up in a ton of job postings. That's pretty much always going to be one that's worth it. The ones that don't show up as often, they may or may not be worth it. They may be worth it as like a secondary option. The Hack the Box one, that's still pretty new. It's still pretty unproven, honestly. If you have the extra funds and you just want to try it out and go for it, go for it. But from an employability standpoint, it's probably not going to make a huge difference. It would kind of just be like another thing that you have on your resume. The Blue Team Level 1 cert, though, I'd probably go for that, especially if you're interested in security operations center stuff. Because again, there's not a lot that is really in that realm. There's like the CYSA Plus from CompTIA. There's the GIAC ones. You can go for those. GCIH, I have that. Can't really see it because the camera's kind of cutting it, but so there's not a lot of security operations centric focused ones, and that is definitely one of the front runners in that space right now. And they have, I think they have a level 2, and then I think they have a manager one. I can't remember if they released the manager one yet, but I think level 1 and 2 are both out. So definitely, again, if you're interested in that realm, nothing wrong with it. But I always tend to prioritize the ones that show up in the job postings the most first, because those are the ones that are going to be easy. Like if you're a hiring manager and you're looking at all these resumes and you're going to say yes or no on these different candidates that are applying, right? That makes it an easy yes. If you have the certifications that I'm asking for as a hiring manager, it's an easy criteria for me to just say yes. Obviously, you're probably going to look at other things too, but the easier that you can make that job for the hiring manager to review those resumes, or the recruiter to review them, go through it, match against the criteria, the better off you're going to be. So it all depends on how you kind of look at these things. But you're gonna have to get hands-on experience somehow. So projects are a great way to do it. Hopefully, in all the certifications, they start really amping up how much hands-on training and stuff that they have. But And it's kind of a long-winded answer. All right. Let's see here. All right. Are candidates with some IT experience not more desirable to HR than someone who has not been around that environment looking for the same entry level roles? So, yes. I mean, having experience, especially related experience, is going to be more beneficial than not from a general standpoint. Pretty much every IT job is going to have some kind of correlation or connection relationship with cybersecurity. You probably had cybersecurity type responsibilities if you're working in IT. So there is benefit to that. You're going to understand how people talk in the career field. You're going to understand how those communications occur, all those kinds of things. That doesn't mean that you can't overcome that barrier without having any experience. I got in the career field and I didn't have any IT experience. It's just all about how strategic you are and the things that you learn, how you're able to sell yourself and sell your experience and how relatable that is. So, experience is a hard one to overcome, but it's not impossible. Again, it's just how do you present the information? One of the challenges that people coming from an IT background have, that I see it all the time, this kind of goes back to the resumes, is not being able to turn off that IT mindset. Being very focused on IT centric tasks and applying for cybersecurity jobs. If you can't make that switch and really sell yourself as a cybersecurity professional, you still sell yourself as an IT professional, you're still going to have similar issues that somebody would have with no experience, in that you can't get calls for interviews, you can't get cybersecurity jobs because you're still in this mindset of a different profession. So experience can help, but it's about how you apply that experience, how you sell yourself, and that will determine how easy that transition is. But being in a company too, if you're working in IT and you're trying to switch to the cybersecurity team, that can be beneficial too, because now you have connections with that cybersecurity team, right? Connections and networking can be hugely beneficial. Even if you're not working in a company and you go to a local meetup group or something about cybersecurity, something about IT, meeting people, meeting hiring managers, trying to get referrals, all those things can be beneficial, and in a lot of cases, that can alleviate some of the requirements. People want to work with people that they enjoy working with. So, you may not have everything that's needed for a certain job. That doesn't mean you're not going to get the job if you know people. Just how it is. So that's why networking is extremely beneficial, and why you should not avoid networking with people if at all possible. Brian, so a question for you again, since I still have you on here. Have you gone to any networking events, or had any opportunities to network with different people from organizations or anything like that?
No, there's been some opportunities to do some web stuff through the Veterans Affairs, but I haven't done anything yet. No.
Okay, yeah, definitely. Check that stuff out. I'll put these in the chat here, but there's a lot of professional organizations and things like that that are worth checking out. I'm gonna put these in here. But a lot of those will have local meetup groups, depending on where you're at in the world. What part of you're in the U.S., I'm assuming?
Yeah, in Kentucky.
Okay, in Kentucky, yeah. So there, I mean, there's going to be a lot of stuff kind of around that area. Obviously, it depends on like the city and stuff, and like how far you are from some of these chapters. A lot of the major cities will have chapters, um, but those can be great opportunities to just go meet people. Even if you just go to those and you kind of get your finger, kind of an idea of what what challenges these companies are going through or what technologies they're using. Like all of that information can be beneficial, even if it doesn't necessarily lead to a direct job opportunity. A lot of times, too, you'll find that over time, you'll start to meet more and more people, and some of these relationships will come back to help you later on, even if they don't help you right away.
Right.
Right? You might meet somebody that is some analyst or something at a company, and then a couple years later, well, they're a manager now and they're hiring people. Oh, that's a good contact to have. So it's one of these things where uh, it seems like a huge career field and there's like people everywhere, but a lot of times you'll end up seeing these same people again, especially if you stay in the same kind of industry. Like for instance, I worked in the defense industry for a while, and so those people I would see all the time because that is a smaller industry for sure, and you see the same people a lot. See the same people go to different companies, change jobs, change teams, and it's like that for really a lot of these different industries. If you're looking at like kind of the startup atmosphere in Silicon Valley, same kind of idea, right? Like a lot of these people go to these different companies and they move around, and you see a lot of the same faces. Banking, it goes on and on and on with all these different industries. So definitely just growing that professional network is so important. That will come back to help you so much. So definitely recommend that. The organizations I put in the chat: ISAC, ISC Squared, IEEE, InfraGard, OWASP. Those are just some of the organizations that are out there. There's so many of them, but those are some of the major ones that are out there, and probably a good place to kind of start. But yeah, there's a whole bunch of different ones out there to explore. Let's see here. All right, so far that's all the questions. Got a few more minutes left here. But just a reminder too for anybody that joined, after this stream will be available on the Cyber Squad memberships for the YouTube stuff, as well as on Cyber Training Pro. We're having these monthly, so if you want to join the show, we're going to have this same kind of format where you can hop on, you can ask questions. Anybody that's on the live stream that joins through the link that's in the chat will definitely get preferential treatment as far as the questions that you ask. You'll have the priority. So kind of a incentive for people to join and kind of hang out. But really the idea here is just to kind of hang out and talk about cybersecurity, talk about career stuff, resumes, all those kinds of things. And yeah. So while we're kind of wrapping up here, it looks like we got about 8 minutes left here or so, though. Since I have you on here, Brian, is there any other questions that you have? Any things that you're struggling with in this career field? Challenges you're finding so far?
Well, probably not far enough into it to figure out many challenges yet, but I wonder if I turned 50 years old this year. Is that going into the field? Is that going to be a deterrent for, I would imagine, for some, but you think that would be an issue moving forward?
Yeah, so I think I actually put a video out on this too, but I would say definitely not. One of the things that this career field is all about is it's more of a matter of how much time and effort are you willing to put in, right? Because you're starting out a new career field. Are you willing to learn the information? A lot of stuff in this career field can go so quick, right? Like you can, in a matter of a couple of years, you could just shoot right through the ranks and get to pretty high level jobs. And so it really just depends on how much time and energy you're willing to put in, right? Like if you were let's say you were going to retire next year, might not be the best career field, right? Because you're going to have a very short runway, and in a year, it's very hard to get all those skills and knowledge and actually take advantage of that. It's just how it is, right? Um, but yeah, I mean, couple years, 5, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, however long you want to work, as long as you have a decent amount of time and energy and the interest to excel in this career field, it's not a problem, right? And as you get into this career field too, there's all kinds of different opportunities, right? Let's say you get through your program and all of a sudden you decide that you want to, maybe you don't want to be that deep technical expert, but maybe you want to do like project management for cybersecurity. Okay, well, there's a lot of opportunity for that. And you'll find too that the deeper that you get into the technical side of things or more connected to the operational side of things, there is more technical knowledge requirements, right? Like you have to just keep pushing that barrier as far as how much you're going to learn. Versus like the non-technical or the less technical kind of side of things, the management, the project stuff, GRC, like all those kind of things, those do not require as much technical upkeep. There's still some that you have to still evolve your technical knowledge, kind of understand from like a conceptual level some of this stuff. But there's less demand on the technical aspects in those kind of jobs. And that's not just for somebody, at your stage in life, but anybody, right? If you're coming out of, let's say, college, and you're like, I don't want to be that deep technical person. I just want to manage projects or whatever. Okay, there's a place for you. So it's, in general, age should never be an issue in this career field, unless you're going to retire in like 6 months and you're just trying to jump in. But, I've worked with people of all different ages in this career field. I've worked with people that are in their 60s, right? That are just trying to kind of get into this. It's the same kind of thing, right? Like if you're coming into this in late stage and you don't want to have to keep up with a lot of technical stuff, there's still a place for you. It's just probably not going to be like the deep technical aspect or deep technical jobs. So it's one of those things you have to kind of keep in mind, because you want to understand, how much time and energy and effort you're going to have to put in to get these certain types of jobs. But yeah, I mean, in general, age is not anything that matters. It's more of a time and energy and effort and interest that you really have to think about. But yeah, at 50, you're good. Like you have plenty of time to learn this stuff. And like I said too, it's like a lot of especially the foundational stuff, a year, 2 years, it just depends on how much time and effort you can put in, but you can pick this stuff up really quickly. Within a couple of years, 3, 4, 5 years, you can move so fast through this career field that it's just like, it's crazy. Like it is by far one of the fastest kind of career fields that I've seen, because you can just go quickly, right? If you're just willing to put in that time and energy and effort and learn this stuff, create projects, kind of maneuver as you need to, be strategic about what you're doing, you can move so quickly. It's crazy. Let's see, we got one more question here. Let's do this one. So I struggle with writing reports, be it for executives or tech folks. Do you have a format you use? Do you keep it short, or do you try to elaborate more? So yeah, this comes down to understanding your audience. This is kind of just a general thing for writing, because we're talking about writing reports, or communicating in general. Understanding the audience. A lot of times executives, if you've heard of something called an executive summary, it's going to be very abbreviated. It's a summary. It's not going to get deep into the technical aspects of things. It's going to be very high level, but it needs to get a certain point across. If you're writing for technical folks, it needs to be more detailed, more technical in the aspects, the procedures that you took. There's a whole bunch of different templates and things that are out there. If you go to SANS, you can find definitely some templates on their website. But really, it's a quick Google search. Like there's so many templates out there, but it comes down to the audience, right? Executives, they're going to want it short, straight to the point, maybe like a page. A lot of times, executive summaries are a page long. A technical report or a technical document might be 50 pages long, might be 100 pages long, because you have all the findings or all those kind of things in that document. So writing is one of those things that you get better at by just doing. You practice, you practice, you practice, just keep writing, right? Writing blogs and articles and things like that are a very popular way to just practice. I mean, obviously, if you're in a job where you can practice that kind of stuff and you can write blog posts or write white papers and things like that, great. You'll get practice doing that. But if you just want to go out there and go on LinkedIn or something and just start writing, try to write towards different audiences. Pick a subject. One week, maybe you write a very high level executive summary kind of post. Then maybe you write a more detailed technical post about how to actually configure that technology, or the specifics of it, the settings, step-by-step procedures, those kind of things. Because those will be two different audiences, and then you can just practice that. Just keep doing it. Just keep doing it. One of the things with building that portfolio is you want to show your evolution. So your early projects or your early articles, your early posts, those are gonna, be a certain level of quality. And then as you expand, as you do more and more, you're going to show that you're getting better and better and better at that. Or you should. You should want to show that, because that's where some of the benefit comes into play, because you want an employer that can go and look at that, say, wow, like this first post was okay, I guess, right? And then this last post, wow, that was amazing. You've grown so much, you've developed so much in your ability that I'm impressed. So that's kind of a goal with that, and why documenting and doing those kinds of things is helpful. But yeah, I mean, writing, just like speaking, you just have to practice it. That's how you're going to get better at it. You practice it, you look back at it, you say, wow, I didn't like this, I didn't like how I did this, I liked how I did this, whatever. And then you just improve it on the next one. And you just keep iterating through practicing and different versions of things, and you just get better and better and better. But that's really the way you do it. You just practice it. You have to be very focused on what you're trying to do. Have that goal in mind. So I'm trying to write it for this type of audience, executives, technical audience, whatever. And then you do it. Then you do it again. Then you do it again. Then you do it again. You just have to keep doing it. It's one of those things where it's, you just can't be told to do it a certain way. You have to just keep doing it till it becomes habit. It's like going to the gym, working out. It has to become habit. You just have to practice good habits and keep doing it. Keep doing it. Keep doing it. And you'll get there. So with that being said, we are at the top of the hour here. So I want to go ahead and wrap it up. I appreciate you hopping on here, Brian, hanging out with me, asking some questions. Hopefully this was helpful for you. And again, for everybody else, we are going to keep doing this every month right now. So definitely keep checking the channel, and we'll keep plugging along. If you guys have any questions after this, don't hesitate to ask me. Reach out, comment on any of my stuff. I'll respond, and we'll just keep going at this thing. But I appreciate everybody joining, and I'll see you next time. All right, see you later.